Westminster runaround, well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening and welcome to Patrick Christys Tonight.
Well, I'm very clear that the levels of net migration are too high. Means that if you're a young person who's graduated from a global top 50 university, you can just come to the UK.
Which one is it, Slippy Rishi? New polling says that 53% of Brits support an immediate 5-year freeze on all immigration. Do you? And just when you think the woke mind virus couldn't get any worse,
you're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
the BBC's Doctor Who brings transgender non-binary guff to aliens. I ask, is there any sign of intelligent life at the Beeb? And King Charles thinks Harry's a fool, William is a villain, and the royals are a nest of racists. Explosive allegations in Omid Scobie's new book, which will hit the shelves tomorrow morning. We pick these claims apart, and that's before we got started on this.
You've really created a big mess, Nigel.
If you believe in democracy and independence, Fred, it's a liberation.
Is Nigel being airbrushed out of I'm a Celeb because the left is terrified of him coming across too well? On the sofa tonight, we've got the top team of Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda de Lucy. This is Patrick Christys Tonight, and we're live. OK, right, come on, talk to me. Are you one of the silent majority that would stop all immigration now for 5 years? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Get on Twitter, @GBNews. It all revs up after your headlines.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening to you. And some breaking news to start this bulletin. The Israeli military has confirmed 11 hostages are now on their way home and will undergo a medical assessment before being reunited with their families. Qatar's foreign ministry confirmed in the last half hour that many of the released are children, with photographs of 3 French, 2 German and 6 Argentinians being released, as well as 2 little girls, 3-year-old twin girls, going back to their family. Well, Hamas says it's received a list of 33 Palestinians to be released from Israeli jails in return. It said these included 3 female prisoners and 30 minors. A video posted online showed a bus arriving at an Israeli military prison on the West Bank. And that comes as a humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas has been extended for 2 more days. Well, in news here at home, the Home Secretary has said the business model of people smuggling gangs will be destroyed, as he underlined the government's commitment to stopping illegal migration. James cleverly made the comments as he faced questions in the House of Commons today for his first time as Home Secretary. Mr Cleverly said the government was doing all it could to stop small boat crossings.
The people who are being smuggled are seen as just products. They are expendable in the eyes of those people smugglers, and we have to do everything we can, and we will do, to break their business model. I commend the work of my right honourable friend, the Immigration Minister, who has recently been to Bulgaria, where in close cooperation with our international partners in Bulgaria, we have seized boats, we have seized engines, we are breaking the business model.
James Cleverly. Well, in other news today, nearly £30 billion is being invested into new business projects in the UK. The Prime Minister's told Global Summit today that there are positive momentum in the UK economy, particularly in the areas of science, tech and creative. Rishi Sunak says the UK's low tax approach and culture of innovation give the UK a competitive advantage. Health news, and the UK's first case of a new strain of swine flu has been detected in North Yorkshire. The Health Security Agency saying the person contracted what's known as the H1N2 strain. That's similar to a virus found in pigs. They've since fully recovered after experiencing what's been described as a mild illness, but there is now increased surveillance in surgeries and hospitals in the north of England as the authorities try to work out the exact source of the infection. An agreement's been struck between the government and England's top doctors that could bring an end to strike action. The government's agreed to increase the total pay award for consultants by 4.5%. Union members will now vote on the proposal, which, if passed, will see strikes called off. Drivers are being warned to drive carefully and particularly avoid puddles after a record number of so-called pothole breakdowns were reported. The AA says it received more than 52,000 call-outs last month for vehicles caught getting stuck after driving over damaged tarmac. That's the highest number of call-outs for any October they have on record. And early this month, the Prime Minister pledged to deal with the scourge of potholes. But the cost is thought to be at around £14 billion. And the Duke of Sussex's legal challenge over his security arrangements for when he spends time in the UK will reach the High Court next week. Prince Harry's taking legal action against the Home Office after he was told in 2020 that he would no longer be given the same degree of protection as he was before when he's visiting the UK. Lawyers for Harry will argue that he wasn't given an opportunity to make informed representations before the decision was reached. The claim will be heard over 3 days, starting next week. That's the news on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Les Miserables sings empty chairs at empty tables, but the miserable Brits sing empty words and empty promises. We've been asking the wrong questions to Mr Sunak. Never mind, can he get immigration under control? Maybe we're better off asking if he actually wants to. Today started with the ex-Home Secretary Suella Braverman essentially pouring lighter fluid through the letterbox of Number 10 and striking a match. In their 2019 manifesto, the Conservative pledged to reduce overall levels of migration from its pre-Brexit level of 239,000. Almost laughably, last year saw a new record of 750k. We felt her fury at that figure when she wrote that blistering Braverman letter after being sacked. She blasted you, Sunak, have no appetite for doing what is necessary and therefore no real intention of fulfilling your pledge to the British people. I thought she was right then, and I'm even more sure she's right now. That's because The Telegraph has seen a secret migration deal between Sunak and Braverman, and surprise, surprise, Rishi didn't live up to his side of the bargain. In exchange for her leadership support in October last year, Suella set out 4 measures for the Tories to reduce net migration. And here's the thing, they're absolute no-brainers. She was seeking to raise the minimum salary threshold required for foreign skilled workers to be granted a visa from £26,200 a year to £40,000. Now, just hours ago, Trade Minister Kemi Badenoch came out and said that the £26,000 threshold is clearly too low. Restrict all visa holders from bringing over their family with them, not just postgraduate students. Axe graduate visas by giving them 4 months to find work after study instead of a whopping 2 years. Stop foreign students from coming in to do Mickey Mouse degrees like a business studies master's. Now, if implemented, these measures would have meant a reduction in net migration to the tune of hundreds of thousands. But our Prime Minister wasn't interested. So then the day progressed, and Sunak was asked to respond to Braverman and the claims made in The Telegraph. Sunak then did a turn as a really, really bad Houdini novelty tribute act, tying himself in all sorts of knots. Now, it's rare that a Prime Minister gets caught out being so duplicitous so quickly, but here is Rishi Sunak. Just a few small hours separate these clips.
Well, I'm very clear that the levels of net migration are too high. They need to come down to more sustainable levels. Our new high potential individual visa means that if you're a young person who's graduated from a global top 50 university, you can just come to the UK and stay here with your family for 2 years to just explore, work, study, invent. Nothing like that exists anywhere else in the world.
And just explore. You know, do you. You know, just come to the UK, just live here with your family. Do you ever think there might be a reason why nowhere else in the world does that, Rishi? But like an East End market stall holder with 10 minutes until packing up time, our Prime Minister is just dishing out visas like it's going out of fashion. He's offering 2-for-1 deals, family and friends discount, you name it. He's got it. I'm surprised he hasn't put on a Black Friday sale. Then, also today, somewhere in the middle of all of this guff, Kemi Badenoch, who is currently serving as Secretary of State for Business and Trade, President of the Board of Trade and Minister for Women and Equalities, said this.
I'm certainly in favour of us doing whatever it takes to bring the numbers down to a sustainable level. This is not something that I'm being mealy-mouthed about, but what I don't want to do is go into the specifics when I don't know what the plan is. But I certainly will be pushing for the strongest measures possible.
So if you're that close to government, a year or so out from an election, coming fresh off the back of massive public outrage at astronomical immigration numbers yet again, and you don't know what the plan is, may I politely suggest that's because you don't have a plan. Now, according to the latest polling, 53% of all voters would support an immediate 5-year freeze on all further immigration to the UK so that we can better absorb the mass migration of the last 20 years. That includes 35% of Labour voters, by the way, 62% of workers and 79% of Brexiteers. So I am asking, is that the plan? A 5-year freeze on all immigration? We just bite the bullet and do it. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. I've got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Carol, I'll start with you on that one. Do you think that we should just have a 5-year freeze on all immigration?
Completely. Matt Goodwin wrote a piece on Friday and said exactly that. You know, he said it would give us time to assimilate what we've already taken in and kind of, you know, deal with them in that way, because clearly these numbers aren't sustainable. You know, it makes the small boat situation look piddling. In fact, Goodwin actually said that, you know, it's like, you know, worrying about the people crossing the channel is like worrying about an open window on the first floor of a house when the front door is wide open. And it's true. 104,000 have come on small boats since 2018. Last year alone here, 745,000 net immigration. It's, you know, it's crazy. But you know, and this Sunak, it's clear now he's never had any intentions. Suella's been talking for the last 2 years about what needs to be done. He has said it needs to be fixed, and we know now that this deal was done. The Telegraph have seen sight of it. It was witnessed by multiple people, and what we know is he went away with that document. That deal, which Downing Street denied ever happened, and now calling it a document, and he completely ignored it. She sent him 6 letters, sending him policy proposals to implement all of those things, and he ignored the lot. So it's clear he has no intention of doing anything about it.
OK. Robert's been on GBViews at gbnews.com. Keep these coming in, Patrick. I would fully support a 5-year freeze. Ian says yes for 5 years. 5-year halt to immigration. Alan says I wholeheartedly agree to all immigration. Benjamin, the public want this. Do you?
No.
Why not?
I mean, it's a completely preposterous idea to go from one extreme, which is the 1.5 million net immigration we've had in the last 2 years, which I think, you know, even Labour say is too high. It's a bit ridiculous, really. To go to another extreme of having 0 people for 5 years. I mean, what would that mean in reality? It would mean that lots of hospitals wouldn't have the nurses and doctors they need.
No.
Lots of care homes wouldn't have the staff that they need to look after our elderly. Our universities would collapse because it would ban students coming into the country. I went to the London School of Economics, which is a very hard uni to get into, and people from all over the world that are exceptionally talented come to London, and many of them stay and set up businesses and earn a small fortune.
And you.
And me. And so the idea that you would close the door to all of that would be economic suicide.
OK.
Can I just say the proposal for this moratorium is clear. It's not to ban. It's with the exception of letting health workers in and skilled workers that we badly need.
Can I just quickly point out an oddity about that, though? Because a lot of those health workers ain't going to be earning £40,000 £2,000 a year. And so how do you square that circle?
Can we not pay our own
That's the exception to the rule.
I think you have to be pretty morally bankrupt to keep stripping poorer countries of their health workers. I think it's disgusting. And I think the government's reliance on foreign labour makes us an extremely vulnerable country. The idea that they would rather do that, stop developing countries keeping their own health staff, rather than invest and train your own workforce, I think that's really immoral. All these bleeding heart liberals that love mass immigration don't understand how it impacts poorer countries, this mass movement of people. It certainly does nothing to raise the global poor at all. I think we have a political class now that sees England as just a landmass of buyers and sellers and cheap labour and nothing else, whereas millions of us see it as our home, something that we have our roots and our culture and national identity connected to. But to those who just see this country as a balance sheet, it's nothing more than that, a way to make big corporations money with cheap labour to line their pockets. I've got 4 kids at home. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to buy a house. University is almost impossible now for young students to get into because the places are so competitive now. I've got a daughter just doing her A-levels. My eldest daughter decided not to go to university. She says, Mummy, it's almost impossible. There's too much competition now because they've opened up their doors to the world so much. We're not training British students anymore.
Doesn't that show the nonsense and the small-mindedness of the anti-immigration argument? To say that our universities are so competitive to get into and as though that's a problem, that is a good thing. I want the latest and the best from around the world to be coming here to open businesses, to be studying at our universities. We are better off when it's harder. You don't see Harvard saying we don't want the geniuses from Britain going there.
There should be a ratio. Do you not agree with that, Benjamin? Do you not think that British universities should say, actually, this amount of percentage of places should go to the local community? Or do you just think, no, sell our souls off to everyone else and our kids don't get
the international students are always in addition to a quota of domestic students.
But it's increased hugely over the years.
And let me tell you, a lot of our universities wouldn't be able to provide the resource without people from China paying 20 grand a year.
What's your argument for all of those students coming, 40,000 students every year, who are bringing a huge number of dependents with them as well? Because there was a time after, when the degree was finished, that the student and the dependents went home. Not now. They're staying. That's why the numbers
Can I ask, Benjamin, we've had Rishi Sunak there just hours apart saying, look, I've got to get tough on this, I want to get tough, it's far too high. And they're standing up in front of a different audience and saying exactly what they think. I'm going to talk about later on in the show, by the way, there's some interesting stuff, and we've reached out to Number 10 on this, and we've reached out to the company Infosys, which was set up by Rishi Sunak's wife's father, so his father-in-law. There's an interesting article today in Conservative Post which appears to suggest that company does very well off mass migration, basically, and they are making the insinuation as to whether or not Rishi Sunak has a vested interest in trying to keep mass migration high. Again, I want to emphasise, we've reached out to them for comments on that. But Benjamin, does that look like a bloke to you who is kept awake at night by the problems facing this country? Because I don't really see that with Rishi. I see a bloke who might be looking at how quickly he can move to California.
Well, Rishi Sunak's career, which may well go into tech, but has been in banking and hedge funds and those kind of things, there is loads of people there that are incredibly talented that come to London because we lead the world in financial services. In that second clip you played at the start of the monologue, he talked about visas for highly talented people. What kind of a country becomes so nervous and small-minded that it says to the best of the rest of the world, we don't want you?
We're a small nation, Benjamin. You can't have 1 million+ people coming here every year. It's just not sustainable.
Let me tell you, only London and the South East contribute more in tax than they take in this country, and that's where all of these highly skilled migrants live.
How can
it's
a million a year be
of
sustainable?
whether or not we're being lied to by a duplicitous
We are,
individual.
absolutely. I think they've been lying to us for years. I think they've got no intention whatsoever. The money's too good, the cheap labour's too profitable for a few big corps, and communities are suffering because of that.
Well, later on again, Labour's grand plan now, although they just blurted this out, I'm not sure they actually really mean it, is to bring net migration down to a couple of 100,000, so 200,000. Well, you know, what does that mean when you extrapolate that out? But coming up, Reform UK leader and GBNews star Richard Tice explains why he wants to abolish the Home Office and replace it with a new department for immigration, staffed by people who believe in the cause of sovereign independence. Plus, we'll get the latest on this explosive spat with Lee Anderson. Don't miss that. But up next in The Clash, no sign of intelligent life in the new series of Doctor Who.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
Ah, it's a Furby. I think, isn't it? But the creators have been slammed for what cringeworthy virtue signalling that is. So, has Going Woke wrecked the TV classic? Former Corrie star and voice of the people, Charlie Lawson, takes on Doctor Who superfan and manager of the Who Shop, Owen Luckhurst. That's next. Don't miss out.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like? I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Richard Tice is coming up on a new department for immigration, but now it's time for The Clash. Did a Dalek exterminate all common sense from the new series of Doctor Who? Hopes were high for the revamp of this beloved British franchise, with the Beeb's top writer Russell T Davies reuniting former stars David Tennant and Catherine Tate. But it looks like even a TARDIS could return Doctor Who to its heyday. Just look at the woke nonsense that viewers were subjected to.
Me? Yes, the Meep. I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
My chosen pronoun is the definite article. I am always the Meep.
Oh, I do that.
No signs of intelligent life there, clearly. So, after that pronouns disaster, tonight I'm asking, has Going Woke wrecked the TV classic? Let me know your thoughts. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com. Tweet me @gbnews. And while you're there, go and vote in our poll. I'll bring you those results very, very shortly. Well, to debate this, I'm joined now by the actor and Coronation Street legend Charlie Lawson and the manager of The Who Shop, Owen Lockhurst. Both of you, thank you very, very much. Owen, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that that was a bit cringeworthy and overly woke and it's ruining it?
No, not at all. I've been watching Doctor Who myself for about 17, 18 years now. And I've found that over the years, you know, I've watched both classic series and the new series, and Doctor Who is just one of those shows ever since the 1960s. It's always been subject to change, and I think its foundations have been built upon that, simply because William Hartnell, who couldn't carry on as the Doctor anymore, someone had to take, you know, the place of him. So, you know, since then, you know, they've had to, you know, keep changing, keep evolving to keep the show going all these years.
Okay, Charlie, I'll bring you in. Your thoughts?
Look, Gabriella phoned me this morning, and I thought, what are you on about, darling? So I watched the clip. I actually think, listen, Owen, nice to meet you, son. This is invading all our sort of television, and in my opinion. But I have to tell you, I think David Tennant probably handled this very well, because the character who the girl in it is very serious about this question. But I think David plays it very well. Everybody is aware that, you'll know this, Owen, for Christ's sake, if you watch television. Television series now are issue-driven as opposed to character-driven, etc., etc. But I think David Tennant took hold of the reins here, and I think his tongue is firmly in his cheek. Now, I mean, the next episode, God knows, we're going to ask the Cybermen what they identify of, or what sex is a friggin' Dalek. You know, I mean, it's just silly. But this has invaded everything that we as actors play. But you can guarantee that if somebody ever objected to such a silly load of nonsense in a script, then they'd be told, I'm sorry, but you have to play it, you know, because that's just the way things are now. I just think it's silly. I think David actually handled it quite well, because his tongue is firmly in his cheek. But
okay. Yeah, I mean, Owen, do you think it really needs to be in there? I mean, I can all for, you know, maybe getting with the times, as you say, but he's essentially talking to a furry alien about gender, and at that point, I wonder if they've lost their mind.
I think sometimes, you know, it's good to address some of these things, but also at times it can be a little on the nose. Sometimes you can be, you know, it can be there, but it doesn't have to be spoken as such, because, you know, it's visual to the, you know, the viewer. So sometimes, you know, you don't have to necessarily mention anything.
Charlie, just to broaden it out a little bit, you made a point there about, you know, this is happening everywhere now. It does appear that you can't turn your TV on without hearing some of this stuff and this virtue signalling. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, listen, I could tell you personally, Paddy, you as an actor and someone who's been around for 42 years, I can tell you now, and incidentally, as I've told you and other of your colleagues over the last couple of years, I always consult a few actors. Now, it is everywhere. And Owen, as you say, things have to be addressed and we have to move on. But in an images, it's shoved in now for the sake of it. If you want to do an episode about a Dalek and sexuality, then address it and do it properly. But this is it's tokenism. It's virtue signaling, friggin' nonsense. And I have come across scripts in the last sort of two years that are full of this SHI1T, and it's as simple as that.
Strong stuff. Okay, Owen, I can see you were itching to get involved there. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, back in the 1970s, there was an alien called Alpha Centauri, and even back then, I think it was addressed that Alpha Centauri wasn't, gender specific. But back then, I don't recall anyone, complaining about it. I don't think anyone complains about it now.
No.
There's nobody bloody noticed, Owen, because it wasn't rammed down your throat every friggin' 10 minutes in every episode of every thing you see.
I must say, though, can I just say, this is why we get Owen from the Who shop on, right? Because, you've got this depth of knowledge, a cavern of knowledge that you can claw up from. So this is actually potentially the second gender-neutral reference in Doctor Who history, Owen, and it was fine. It was fine the first time round. Is the point that you were getting at there? Owen, can I ask you a question now? Just be very honest with me. Has Doctor Who got better or worse?
For me personally, I think better. Watching Saturday night's episode, literally when it finished, I was in tears of joy because I remember watching David and Catherine back in 2008. So, I was that 14-year-old child watching Doctor Who again. And for me, that excitement's back again, and, I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, bless
you. I'm hoping that everyone else
behave yourself, Owen. You should be sitting behind the sofa. Not, honest to God, son, you should be sitting behind the sofa. When I watched
maybe when the Daleks and the Cybermen, something scary's on screen, then maybe.
All right, both of you.
I think that's what Doctor Who should be about. I think Doctor Who should scare the friggin' pants off you, and you should be hiding behind the sofa, not just laughing and thinking, "My God." I mean, look. I'll tell you what will happen, Paddy. That eventually, people like me and Owen will shake hands and have a pint in the pub and agree it's all going too far.
Well, okay, you never know. Maybe Dylan Mulvaney will pop up as some kind of alien in the next episode, and that will have people cowering behind their sofas. But both of you, thank you very, very much. That is actor and Coronation Street legend Charlie Lawson, and the manager of the Who shop, Owen Lockhurst. Well, who do you agree with? After a new episode of Doctor Who gets blasted for a scene in which an alien gets asked about its pronouns, has going woke ruined the TV classic? Tim on Twitter says, woke ruins everything. Doctor Who is no longer credible family viewing. Paul on Twitter says, there was always going to be a few woke moments. It's 2023 after all, but it was generally the old Doctor Who we all loved. Good story and cleverly thought out. Geordie on Twitter also says, I found the scene quite humorous, actually. It's an alien, and they tried forcing gender norms onto it. Quite funny that humans assume everything fits into nice, neat boxes. Well, your verdict is now in. 93% of you agree that going woke has ruined Doctor Who, while 7% of you say that it hasn't. Right, coming up. As Omid Scobie claims that King Charles is a pampered royal who has his shoelaces ironed for him, and that Prince William briefs the press against his own brother, is Harry now duty-bound to hit out against his biggest fan's spurious allegations? That's the questions tonight. It's all very well and good saying, oh, I've got nothing to do with this book, but has Harry now got a duty to come out and defend his own family? Top Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden gets stuck into Scobie's bombshell book. That shortly. But as Rishi Sunak is accused of a migration betrayal, is Richard Tice right that we need a new Department of Immigration staffed by people who believe in the cause of sovereign independence? The Reform UK leader and GBNews star Richard Tice hits out at the Home Office. That's next. Plus, he will clear up his explosive spat with Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson. Don't go anywhere.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coming up, Star Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden on the Sussex ally Omid Scobie's bombshell new book. But first, it's time for GB News presenter and leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, and the new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, has assigned a new nickname today by his counterpart Yvette Cooper, Captain Calamity. So, is he the captain of a sinking ship? Cleverly certainly doesn't think so.
I will continue to do what we know to be right, driving down small boat arrivals, reducing the number of hotel rooms that are needed. We've closed 50, and we'll do more.
Right, well, Richard, you've got a solution, haven't you, which is ditch the Home Office entirely and create a new Department of
Absolutely.
Immigration.
I've been saying for months, Patrick, that the Home Office is not fit for purpose. It hasn't been for years and years. And they actually believe in open borders, they want mass immigration. They constantly have a track record of working against the wishes of their elected ministers. And I think you've got to ditch it. I think you've got to start with a whole new Department of Immigration that is staffed very deliberately by people who actually believe in the cause of sovereign, independent, protected borders. People who actually are deliberately sceptical about the claims that are coming in, that are looking at the visa applications that are coming in, the lawful ones, with a very close eye, because that's how you actually carry out the wishes of the people. The wishes of the people is crystal clear. Election after election, to bring immigration numbers down. That's what they voted for, and that's what the civil servants should be enacting. And so I actually think that that's what you need.
What would you do? Would you sack a load of civil servants and just bring in
they're very welcome to reapply, but this is to a whole new job, and this is an area where actually you don't want civil service neutrality. You want people who believe in defending our borders, protecting our borders, and carrying out the wishes of the British people, who have constantly voted to reduce immigration. That's why our policy is absolutely clear. One in, one out. That equals net zero immigration. It's very good. About 400 to 450,000 people leave the country every year. So you can have smart immigration, high qualified, highly skilled people to that number, but no more. You could sort of almost have like a Ryanair booking system as you get nearer the end of the year and the numbers get towards the ceiling. All sorts of ways you can cut it. But the bottom line is, one in, one out. We've got the biggest population ever. We've got record numbers of our own people on out-of-work benefits. It's very simple. You've got to train our own people. And here's the big rub when people bang on about, oh, we need it for the social and healthcare system.
I was about to ask about that.
Well, it's very simple. 30 years ago, when net immigration was less than 100,000, we didn't seem to have a crisis then. Why? Because they were paid properly, they were trained properly, they didn't have to do degrees, they got straight into the job with training, and that's how you look after people. That's what we need to get back to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The current Home Office is broken, it's trashed. Bin it, start again.
Well, look, moving on now to, well, I don't know, a little bit of a spot of bother potentially with a fellow GB newsman, Lee Anderson, after it was alleged that the Tory MP was offered quite a good salary to defect to your party, Reform UK. You've denied this, I think. What's going on?
Yeah, look, we've had a bit of a row. We've agreed to disagree, and we're going to move on. But what I will say is what I said on another channel yesterday morning, where I said, look, conversations that I have with ministers, former ministers, Tory MPs who are fuming about the betrayal of the promises on immigration and stopping the boats, those conversations remain completely confidential. I won't even confirm who I have or have not spoken to. That's my position, and I'm sticking to it.
OK, that's fine. Now, I won't draw you on names, obviously, because it doesn't sound like there's any point, right? But are you talking to Cabinet Ministers at the moment about potential defection?
That's as far as I'm going to go, all right? I'm comfortable with that position. People need to know that they can trust me to keep conversations confidential.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Right, well, finally, London Mayor Sadiq Khan has been giving evidence at the COVID inquiry today.
I can see no explanation at all why, the GLA, the Mayor of London, we weren't around that table. I think lives could have been saved if we were earlier. Very few cabinet members around there probably represent a diverse community, understand that people of Black, Asian, minority ethnic background have other illnesses, which means if they get the virus, the consequences are more serious.
Sadiq Khan there, I think, trying to model himself as the saviour of ethnic minorities during the coronavirus crisis.
Look, I think, frankly, given that that man did not turn up to the march yesterday organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, I was there. It was deeply moving. I was very proud as a non-Jewish person to be there. I think, frankly, that man, his reputation is trashed. He should be finished. It was an absolute disgrace. And I think Londoners need to realise who is currently in charge and, frankly, make sure, just on that alone, he should be hoofed out, because he's not there on behalf of all Londoners. If you are of Jewish origin, then as an ethnic minority, he is not there to look after you. He doesn't care about you. It's absolutely disgusting.
I actually think there was an astonishing lack of political representation at that march yesterday. This is a campaign against anti-Semitism march. OK, all right, it was also very pro-Israel, and that's by the nature of the people, the vast majority of the people who turned up. But that wasn't just what it was about. It was about a lot of people very concerned about an astonishing rate of anti-Semitism that's taking place ever since those October the 7th attacks, and the lack of perceived action as well from police, lack of condemnation from certain political quarters. I did think it was shameful that there was not more political representation there, and I couldn't help but think if that had been a march against another type of phobia, they'd have been queuing up.
I tell you what, to hear yesterday morning a Labour MP say live on TV that he wasn't there because some of his constituents had different views, I thought was reprehensible. Showed a complete failure of conviction, of courage, of doing the right thing. The man should be ashamed of himself. Absolutely appalling. Great news, though, Patrick. The number of people who came up to me and says, I watch you on GB News. I love GB News. It was remarkable. Hugely, hugely significant.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was actually, I must say, very refreshing as well. And thank you to everyone who is watching and tuning in and showing that I think, you know, there is at least one channel there with a little bit of common sense in all of this madness. Look, can I ask you a quick question before I let you get going? And it's about Rishi Sunak. It's a topic I'm going to come on to later on. Now, you know, later on I'm going to be having a little look at whether or not there's any kind of vested interest there from the old Sunak family business, as it were, about keeping mass migration very, very high. We've reached out to Sunak. We've reached out to the company involved. More detail on this later. But does Rishi Sunak look to you like a man who is being kept awake at night by the realities?
No, absolutely not. He's not being kept awake. He doesn't care. The Home Secretary doesn't care. This is the same Home Secretary, the same man who 6 years ago said after the Brexit vote, we need to educate people in the UK about the benefits of immigration. He doesn't care at all. He doesn't care about the Rwanda plan. He just likes, frankly, moving around big cabinet positions. This lack of conviction. And he is, I tell you what, that's a good nickname. Captain Calamity. Calamity cleverly.
All right, just very quickly, again, Labour have come out, whether or not they meant to say it, I'm not sure. 200,000, apparently, is their target for net migration now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, my target is 1 for 1, so it's actually net zero, as opposed to net plus 200,000. That's the right thing to do so that we can actually get our own people back to work. That's what we should do.
Thank you very much. Richard Tice there, that is the leader of Reform UK, GB News presenter. Now, coming up, as Labour claimed that they would get net migration down to 200,000, can any of our politicians be trusted to solve the worsening crisis? And some strong accusations about Rishi Sunak in an article that was published today. I do hit out at Keir Starmer, I hit out at Rishi Sunak, I hit out at all of those hand-wringing political class very, very shortly. We'll also have an exclusive I'm a Celebrity reaction. And, yeah, I mean, seriously, from what I've heard, it is actually quite interesting at the lengths that ITV are going to airbrush Nigel Farage out of the series, including not running something that our insiders tell us was absolutely sensational telly from the camp today. I'll also have the most entertaining paper review you will get anywhere on the TV. But next, King Charles thinks Harry is a fool, William is a villain, and the royals are a nest of racist, explosive allegations in Omid Scobie's new book, which will hit the shelves from midnight. Top Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden picks those outrageous claims apart. That's next.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Sussex's cheerleader-in-chief, Omid Scobie, has sparked uproar after a baseless assault against the royal family in his new book. Endgame will be released tomorrow, but some early release extracts have already prompted widespread backlash, including from the Daily Express, whose front page today called on Prince Harry to hit out at the cruel attacks on the royals, basically saying, look, he's got to come out swinging here if he cares about his family. Well, the latest Scobie bombshells include a spurious claim that King Charles is a pampered royal who has his courtiers iron his shoelaces and squeeze toothpaste onto his brush. Scobie also accuses Prince William of briefing the press against his brother, which allies of the future king have since blasted as outrageous suggestions. Well, Celia joins me now. And is Prince Harry duty-bound to publicly rebuke Scobie? Do you think he's got to come out swinging?
Yes, he really does. I mean, because it's one of two things are going on here. Either Scobie has gone rogue and just decided he's gonna. I mean, we really hope that this is his end game, because I'm getting terrible sort of Groundhog Day feeling from all this. But so either he's gone rogue and he's just decided to, you know, try his luck, or he is actually doing this, you know, in some way for Meghan and perhaps Harry too, which is obviously worse. But either way, you get the feeling that it's sort of getting out of control, really, because he's going to, if he is doing this sort of with Meghan and Harry, perhaps, then what happens when they eventually have a falling out, which seems to happen with everyone, and indeed happened with a previous sort of ghostwriter, didn't it? Because then it will become obvious that they have been colluding with him. But it just seems to be a series of really sort of embarrassing. It's very much down in the weeds, isn't it? This one. I mean, the toothpaste, an inch of toothpaste on his toothbrush, and the ironed laces. It's just all so embarrassing.
I mean, that toothbrush thing I'd heard years ago anyway as a kind of joke more than anything. I think a certain way he likes his egg cooked and things. It's not really new stuff, even if it is true, to be honest. So, you know, it does make you question the quality of the book, which has not been that well received as well. I mean, even the New York Times have come out and absolutely panned it. So there you go. But, you know, Harry, I just think if you did really care about your family, surely you would come out and distance yourself from some of the claims in there. You know, you would have to, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, he needs to, but also she needs to, because let's not forget that she was forced to admit under oath that she'd forgotten, as it turns out, that she had in fact briefed Scobie before for the first book, and she did say this was via an aide. But you see, this is what I'm worried about: is all this language. If you mean that there's one person in between you two, then I'm sorry, but you're still briefing. Yeah. You're still briefing this person. So you know, as we know, sort of truth and transparency are not perhaps her strong points.
Well, possibly not. But look, to another bombshell claim to emerge from this book. So Meghan claimed not one, but two members of the royal household discussed Archie's skin colour while she was pregnant. Here is Scobie speaking about this big royal race row.
I do know who made the comments about Archie's skin colour. The names were mentioned in letters between Meghan and Charles that were exchanged sometime after the Oprah interview. We know from sources that Charles was horrified that that's how Meghan felt those conversations were, and that he wanted to, sort of as a representative of the family, have that conversation with her. And it's why I personally think that they have been able to move forward with some kind of line of communication afterwards, though they may not see eye to eye on it.
Quite a lot to unpack there. So if these letters were between Meghan and Charles and you've not been talking to Charles, how have you got hold of these? I mean, do you believe anything he says?
Could it be? Well, I mean, he's famously lied about his age, to a journalist, which is just not, apart from anything else, just not a smart thing to do, is it? So I suspect a lot of, because it's going to come out. So I think that there's just going to be I mean, I'd like to say he's a figure of fun, but unfortunately, it's not fun because he's needlessly vicious, and also it's tedious. It really is. It feels like when I saw the paper and it had that on the front page about, not one, but two, sort of felt like I was, 18 months had gone by and we're still discussing this one sort of rumoured conversation.
Just name it. Just get it out there. Everyone's sick of it. Just say all this, it's like Mean Girls, isn't it? It's all this kind of talking behind each other's back. And then very often when people, I don't know about you, but, in life, whenever anyone tells you, oh, no, I can't tell you what I've just been talking about, it turns out it was dull anyway. In the end, you get to the bottom of it and you just think, oh, what was the point of all of that? But look, moving away from the royals, Celia, staff at Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital and King's College Hospital in London have been recording the gender identity of newborn babies on forms instead of their biological sex. So the hospitals have since apologised and attributed the issue to an error in their new IT system. But Celia, you've been doing a bit of digging on this and you're going to tell us what you found now, aren't you, I think?
Well, what's alarming about this, I mean, the first thing that is alarming, because, of course, on every level it's worrying, is that there was no box for sex. So there was only a box for gender identity. Now, we're being told, a spokesman for the NHS said that this was because they've just implemented this incredibly fancy new IT system, £450 million we are spending on this, and that it was an error, a systems error. Now, I think that's a little bit too convenient, given we know perfectly well what their stance has been, particularly recently, despite being told off for this. So they have been, for example, as we know, calling it chest feeding online on their various websites instead of breastfeeding. They've not called them, they're not saying mothers or women, all of that. A ridiculous wokery. And so this makes perfect sense. It's all the same narrative. And what worries me the most about this is that it feels as though, even though they've been told expressly not to do this, they are now so ensconced in their own ideology that they're just going to ignore whatever anyone says.
It's just remarkable. I mean, literally the epicenter of biological fact that what sex is the baby, the baby's just come out of the womb, and we're being asked to assign it a gender and not just look what's between its legs. But look, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. I really hope to talk to you again very, very soon. There's Celia Walden there, who's the star columnist at the Daily Telegraph. Going to tell Alison Pearson that, she'll kill me. But coming up, as lefty comedian Stuart Lee writes an absolutely scathing column calling for Nigel Farage to be deplatformed, while also claiming that Anton Deck will have blood on their hands if he wins. Are the left and woke ITV bosses scared of the GB News star winning I'm a Celeb? We found something out from an inside source in the camp tonight that we'll bring to you shortly, which appears to prove this. We get exclusive reaction from Down Under before our very own Belinda DeLucy debates former Labour advisor Stella Chantakidou. That's happening very soon. But of course, I'm going to tee off on the shower that is our political class on immigration, and that's coming your way next.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Staying cold throughout this week, really frosty mornings will become pretty frequent, and so will quite a bit of sunshine by day. It wasn't a lot of sunshine around today, quite a lot of cloud and still some outbreaks of rain coming into northern England and eastern England. And the showers in northern Scotland will turn to snow, but only really over the tops of the hills. Might turn a bit icy, could turn a bit foggy in places, and temperatures dropping below freezing across northern Britain, certainly in the countryside. Further south, just about holding up a few degrees above zero. On to Tuesday, we'll start with quite a lot of cloud over the Midlands, the odd shower here and there, but that should clear away. The showers in northeast Scotland will turn increasingly wintry, so some sleet and snow coming in here, certainly by the end of the day, even to low levels. For many, though, it's a dry and a bright day tomorrow. It's going to be cold, 4 or 5 degrees across the north, 7 or 8 further south, but feeling chilly with the winds, which will continue to bring wintry showers in across northeast Scotland, but also maybe southeast Scotland, northeast England. We could see some sleet and snow showers on Tuesday night and into Wednesday, so it could be a little icy here. Again, for many, Wednesday's dry and fine, chilly, yes, but with quite a bit of sunshine. Temperatures, though, well below average for the time of year. With the cold air in place, eyes down to the southwest, because these low pressure systems could introduce some wet weather, and that means the potential, just the risk of some snow in the south later this week.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is Patrick Christys Tonight.
Well, I'm very clear that the levels of net migration are too high. Means that if you're a young person who's graduated from a global top 50 university, you can just come to the UK.
Rishi Sunak takes us all for mugs and tells two different audiences two different things on immigration just hours apart. But Labour thinks this is a normal level of immigration.
Well, the normal level is a couple 100,000 a year.
Yeah, not sure about that, but 53% of the public want a total ban on new arrivals for the next 5 years. I tear into the shower that is our political class shortly.
You've really created a big mess, Nigel. If you believe in democracy and independence, Fred, it's a liberation.
Well, the rumour is that ITV execs are desperately trying to airbrush Nigel out of the I'm a Celebrity jungle, and I'll bring you an exclusive shortly, which appears to prove just that. Unhinged lefty commentators in The Guardian say that they will have blood on their hands if Nigel becomes more popular. Have they lost the plot? We'll go live down under with Ben Leo for exclusive reaction in 15 minutes. You won't want to miss what he has to say, let me tell you. Also, what the heck is happening in China? Chinese hospitals are overflowing with people suffering pneumonia-like symptoms. They say everything's fine. Are we having déjà flu? I've got the most entertaining newspaper preview on the telly, and expect the papers to be full of stuff like this.
I do know who made the comments about Archie's skin colour. The names were mentioned in letters between Meghan and Charles that were exchanged sometime after the Oprah interview.
Well, Omid Scobie's new book is out tomorrow. Kelvin MacKenzie will tear into that, but on the sofa, it's a tremendous trio of Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Belinda DeLucy. It's Patrick Christys Tonight, and it's live. Well, we may well have unearthed actual proof that Nigel Farage is indeed being airbrushed out of the jungle by woke ITV bosses. Now, we'll bring that to you just after 1:15. Well, they might be scared that he's actually going to win it. gbviews@gbnews.com is that email address. Do you think he's being airbrushed now? Get on Twitter @GBNews. It all revs back up after your headlines.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, it's been a good night in Israel tonight. 11 hostages, including 8 children and 3 adults, have been released from Gaza this evening. They've arrived now in Israel, and they're having medical checkups before being reunited with their families. Qatar's foreign ministry confirmed their identities, and photographs were released of 3 French, 2 German and 6 Argentinians, including an image of 3-year-old twin sisters. Israel says 50 women and children are to be freed over 4 days. Hamas, for its part, says it's received a list of 33 Palestinians to be released from Israeli jails in return. It said these included 3 female prisoners and 30 minors. A video posted online showed a bus arriving at an Israeli military prison, believed to be the moment that the Palestinian prisoners will be picked up. That comes as a humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas has been extended for 2 more days. Well, in news here at home, the Home Secretary has said the business model of people smuggling gangs must be destroyed as he tried to underline the government's commitment to stopping illegal migration. James Cleverly made the comments as he faced questions in the House of Commons today for his first time as Home Secretary. Mr Cleverly said the government's doing all it can to stop small boat crossings.
People who are being smuggled are seen as just products. They are expendable in the eyes of those people smugglers, and we have to do everything we can, and we will do, to break their business model. I commend the work of my right honourable friend, the Immigration Minister, who has recently been to Bulgaria, where in close cooperation with our international partners in Bulgaria, we have seized boats, we have seized engines, we are breaking the business model.
James Cleverly. Now, nearly £30 billion is going to be invested in new business projects in the UK. The Prime Minister has told Global Summit today there's positive momentum in the UK economy, particularly in the science, tech and creative sectors. Rishi Sunak says the UK's low-tax approach and culture of innovation give it a competitive advantage. And the UK's first case of a new strain of swine flu has been detected in North Yorkshire. The Health Security Agency says the person contracted what's known as the H1N2 strain, similar to a virus found in pigs. The person has since fully recovered after experiencing a mild illness. But there's increased surveillance now in surgeries and hospitals across northern England as the authorities work to establish the source of the infection. An agreement's been struck between the government and England's top doctors that could bring an end to strike action. The government has agreed to increase the total pay award for consultants by 4.5%. Union members will now vote on the proposal, which, if passed, will see strikes called off. Drivers are being warned to drive carefully and avoid puddles after a record number of so-called pothole breakdowns were reported. The AA saying it received more than 52,000 call-outs last month for vehicles getting stuck after driving over damaged tarmac. That's the highest number of call-outs for any October they have on record. Well, early this month, the Prime Minister pledged to deal with the scourge of potholes, but the estimated cost of fixing them is at around £14 billion. And lastly, His Majesty the King has met with business and finance leaders from across the world at Buckingham Palace this evening to mark the UK's Global Investment Summit. King Charles was introduced by the Prime Minister to attendees from the summit. The reception comes ahead of the King's attendance at the opening ceremony of the World Climate Action Summit at COP28 in Dubai on Friday. That's the news from GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Never before has so much damage been done to so many by so few. I have turned from disappointment to genuine fury at Rishi Sunak. I don't think this guy loses a wink of sleep worrying about the problems this country faces. I think he's using his position as Prime Minister as a line on his CV. and a stepping stone to Silicon Valley. I'm starting a sweepstake on how long it is before Rishi Sunak moves his entire family to America. Today we saw one of the most duplicitous things I've seen from a Prime Minister on immigration, and this clip sums up why we have such a big problem.
Well, I'm very clear that the levels of net migration are too high. They need to come down to more sustainable levels. Our new high potential individual visa means that if you're a young person who's graduated from a global top 50 university, you can just come to the UK and stay here with your family for 2 years to just explore, work, study, invent. Nothing like that exists anywhere else in the world.
Those clips are taken just hours apart. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's not even trying anymore, is he? Opens mouth, soundbite over here. OK, different crowd, opens mouth, completely different soundbite over here. The only thing I've seen him get genuinely turned on about is artificial intelligence. I mean, he's more turned on by artificial intelligence than a bloke who actually owns an arsenal of sex robots. Kemi Badenoch, Secretary of State for Business and Trade since 2023, President of the Board of Trade and Minister for Women and Equality since 2022, has piped up today.
I'm certainly in favour of us doing whatever it takes to bring the numbers down to a sustainable level. This is not something that I'm being mealy-mouthed about, but what I don't want to do is go into the specifics when I don't know what the plan is. But I certainly will be pushing for the strongest measures possible.
Ah, brilliant. So you don't know what the plan is. I mean, you're a flipping cabinet minister. There isn't actually a plan, is there? There isn't. And there are some unconfirmed concerns, and I think this is something that's worth paying attention to. That Rishi Sunak's in-laws founded a company called Infosys, which has garnered the Sunak family incredible amounts of wealth, whose business model reportedly relies, or certainly is helped by, soft-touch immigration laws and finding loopholes. So much so that there is this report from the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which states Indian corporation pays record $34 million fine to settle allegations of systemic visa fraud and abuse of immigration processes. Now, they deny any wrongdoing in all of this, and there is no evidence that the Prime Minister has been compromised. Number 10 and Infosys are both yet to reply to our request for comment, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'll just say it again, Rishi Sunak doesn't strike me as a man who is kept awake at night worrying about how to solve our immigration problem. He certainly doesn't behave like one in my view. Let's turn to Labour, shall we? Yesterday, their shadow immigration minister said he wanted to get net migration down to 200,000. But it depends on the needs of the economy. Well, there you go. They'll do absolutely naff all then. Whenever they talk about mass migration being good for the economy, nobody tells you how much better we'll be per capita. Why? Because it's getting worse, not better. Labour says it's all about growth, growing GDP. Well, there is no way they're going to cut the immigration numbers of their own accord. Keir Starmer was asked which song sums up the Labour Party, and he chose the EU anthem, Ode to Joy. The EU's borders have the same consistency as wet cardboard. Oh, and of course, he also said that he prefers Davos to Westminster, so he's hardly Mr Britain, is he? The Labour leader in Wales, Mark Drakeford, even reportedly wanted to give asylum seekers £1,600 a month, so I think that tells you everything you need to know there. Up in Scotland, Humza Yousaf called for Scotland to lead the way and accept Palestinian refugees. None of the neighbouring countries want them, which might also tell you something. You've got this clown in Ireland, Leo Varadkar, who seems pretty content to sell his country down the river when it comes to both legal and illegal immigration, despite massive public outrage, culminating in some incredibly unsavoury scenes the other night during the Dublin riots. He then appears to use that situation not to come out for stronger immigration and enforcement or tighter border restrictions, no. He wants to rush through facial recognition technology that would identify rioters quicker and clamp down more on so-called hate speech online. I mean, this guy couldn't even say that a girl freed by Hamas has been taken hostage. He got community noted on Twitter for saying that she was lost and now she's been found. It wasn't hide and seek, mate. A load of jihadi terrorists took her when they went on a genocidal rampage. Now, when I look around at a variety of geographically close leaders, all I see is a group of people doing their best to distance themselves from a crisis as opposed to actually solving it. But to respond now, I'm joined again by Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Carol, I'll turn to you first on this one. You know, it just doesn't seem to me as though any of our politicians there have any desire whatsoever to solve the migration?
Trust me, there is no one to vote for in this country if what you want is controlled immigration. There's no one, and Labour certainly can't be trusted with it. They started back in 2004 when they opened the doors when Tony Blair got into power, and he let in many more EU migrants than he needed to by dropping the transitional restrictions. And since then, it's been, and Labour don't have a coherent plan. Every time you hear Starmer said something which I found astonishing. He said he was talking about we have to stop being reliant on foreign employees, foreign labour. That's a Brexiteers argument, for God's sake. That's not the argument of let me just carry and just say before he gets in, because he'll take up all the thing. Actually, I've forgotten now.
Right. I mean, that's an absolute classic of the genre.
You're waving me
Benjamin, I can see a future. I can see a future the way the European Union is going, where we have to get back into the EU to control our immigration.
Yes.
Well, where I might agree with the other panellists is that clearly Rishi Sunak and the Tories have lied to the country. Because I don't like the idea of really low immigration. I certainly don't want this 5-year freeze idea. But they went to the country, both at successive general elections and in the Brexit referendum, and said that immigration figures should be lower. Well, I tell you what, it's triple the numbers it was when Gordon Brown left office. And what Gordon Brown said was actually a lot what Keir Starmer said, which was British jobs for British workers. But I think bring back Gordon Brown.
But Belinda, can I bring you in on this? And I just want to say as well, we've gone to number 10 for comment. We've gone to the company Infosys for comment as well. Are you in any way concerned about the idea that there is a company that has links to the Sunak family, that appears to make quite a lot of money out of lax immigration laws and lax immigration rules?
I think people are absolutely bewildered as to the reason why the Tories keep year after year fibbing about their immigration policies, because that's what it is. In the manifesto, not only do they not do it, they triple it. Why not look into possible links? Because there has to be an explanation as to why they're committing political kamikaze over this mass aggressive hyper-immigration issue they've got going. And you know what? Democracy depends on trust to function, right? If there's no trust over immigration, people won't go to the ballot box and see it as a way to alleviate their stress on it. And there will become a time, civil unrest across Europe will happen if our leaders don't take this seriously.
I'm just going to read an extract from this article. It's in Conservative Post. Again, want to stress, we've gone to comment on all of this to all the relevant people. We're yet to hear back. To fulfil their promise, which is basically that they can get people into a variety of different countries for work, companies like Infosys employ huge numbers of immigration lawyers to hunt out the easiest visas and migration loopholes. Once they get their staff in, the lawyers help them push for more visas for children, spouses, siblings, uncles, aunts and in-laws, with the aim of gaining citizenship as soon as possible. That is a company that was founded by Rishi Sunak's father-in-law. Benjamin, should we be concerned by this?
No, I want people to be coming to this country to do the jobs that we need filling and to create businesses and fulfil, very skilled labour like that company may well need those types of workers for. The truth is that we have had serious shortages in areas like healthcare, social care, lorry drivers, hospitality, and we needed people to come into the country to do those jobs.
We have 5 million.
A lot of the people who are coming into this country on immigration, that's 750,000, they're low-skilled workers.
Very low.
And they're on low wages.
Pay very little
and they're
tax.
not all health workers, that's for sure, which is why it's good that they're going to raise this bar. And listen, I think the thing about Sunak is he does not understand the anxiety of the British people about immigration. He's actually Suella said it was a slap in the face. I think it's a little bit more than that.
Spit in the
He
face.
is not understanding their anxiety and their very real concerns. You and I, and we don't live in the areas that are affected by mass migration.
I live in London.
But it's not. You are not affected.
London has more mass migration than anywhere. Maybe anywhere in the world.
The work that you do is not affected by mass migration. The work in lots of other parts of the country is, and you will never feel that.
It's ivory tower syndrome. The Liberals never really face the impact of mass immigration, which is why they keep promoting it.
Well, fantastic start to the hour. A good, proper rip-roaring battle there and a bit of a contest going on. But, yes, our Nigel got his guns out once again. And it seems as though the GB News star is enjoying himself down under. Before I give you a little bit of an exclusive insight into the lengths that ITV are allegedly going to airbrush Nigel out of this series, we've got an insider in the camp who's been revealing some things for us. I'm going to make you watch this.
You do get used to a routine in life. And whilst there are one or two discomforts, it's actually really rather pleasant and rather nice. You wake up and it's natural light and it's beautiful. I mean, it is a very beautiful place. There's no question about that.
Well, let's cross live now to Australia, where our reporter Ben Leo is beachside, obviously, for the inside track on the latest from the jungle. Ben, there you go. Now, you've actually gone and got a little bit of a scoop for us, I think. What's going on?
Yeah, afternoon, morning, evening, Patrick, whatever time it is in the world. I have discovered a rather bombshell revelation, which I am fairly certain is true. I have good sources from inside the I'm a Celebrity camp. If anyone's watched tonight's show of I'm a Celebrity, they'll probably be wondering why the only contribution from Nigel was that clip you just played where he said, "Oh, I love the jungle, it's beautiful." Literally, for the rest of the show, I didn't see him once or hear him speak again. And that's happened a couple of times in recent days. Of course, he has been barred from some Bush Tucker trials because of medical reasons. He's got a dodgy back. However, you would expect conversations at least, or discussions with other campmates and interactions to at least be broadcast. I've discovered that a couple of days ago, and this is on very good authority, remember, that Nigel had a discussion about his good friend and political ally Donald Trump, where he was talking about how he campaigned with Trump during the 2016 election, how he thinks he's a great guy, and all the campmates seemed very interested in what he had to say about it. We've not seen that interaction on telly. And I have to say, why not? Even if it's just a 20, 30-second clip in an hour-plus show of I'm a Celeb, why haven't ITV played that interaction? You would have thought Donald Trump being one of the most popular and controversial figures in the world, why haven't they played that clip? And it kind of plays into reports that we've seen in recent days that lefty ITV producers and people working on the show don't want to give Farage that airtime because they don't agree with him and Trump politically.
Well, that is a fascinating revelation as well. I think we've gone to ITV for comment on this, and we will be hearing back from them in due course. Of course, we're also going to be having a discussion a little bit later on as to whether or not ITV bosses are flapping a bit now because of this. But Ben, thank you very, very much for bringing that to us. We're going to have a chat with our panel now. It's Ben Leo there, beavering away behind the scenes of I'm a Celeb for us. Look, last night, a show spokesperson said it is always our intention to broadcast a show that is a fair and accurate representation of life in the camp for all our celebrities. So that was their comment there. Look, just quickly on this. Belinda, can you believe that ITV would potentially be airbrushing out something like, a conversation between Nigel Farage about, Donald Trump, etc.? Let's be honest, it's probably more interesting than half of the stuff that goes on there, and it looked like they've just put it on the cutting room floor.
I can totally believe it. In fact, I was watching it last night, and I was shocked because Nigel was barely in it at all. And the one moment he was asked a question, which was, "Tell us an exciting story, Nigel," he was asked. The French chap just butted in and talked over him, and he could barely have a word in. Listen, they've paid him a lot of money to do this. People are going to tune out if they feel like he's being airbrushed, and I wouldn't put it past them at all to do it.
I mean, there are these rumours that ITV are flapping a bit because they've got people. We're going to have a discussion about this in a second, actually. So Stuart Lee, the comedian, writing in The Guardian, Anton Decker have blood on their hands if Nigel wins, that ITV will be creating some kind of next Prime Minister, and they're going to have to find a way of living with that. In fact, we aren't going to have time to talk about that now. We'll do it when I come back. But coming up, the UK's most entertaining paper review. You won't be bored as my panel of news experts chew through the latest headlines hot off the press. But yes, as I was saying, comedian Stuart Lee writes a scathing column calling for Nigel Farage to be deplatformed. Are the left and ITV bosses scared of the GBNews star winning I'm a Celeb? Our man down under, Ben Leo, has more exclusive information for us, plus former Labour advisor Stella Tunchakidou and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy. They're going to battle it out on all of that next. Don't miss it.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The liveliest pay-per-view on the telly coming up, but first, they were sent into meltdown when GB News superstar Nigel Farage announced that he was heading into the jungle and the rabble-rousing left just couldn't seem to let it go. So-called comedian Stuart Lee has taken to none other than the rag of The Guardian, of course, to sensationally accuse ITV of providing, I'm quoting now, an uncritical platform for a dangerous demagogue to present himself as a man of the people without being held to account in any meaningful way. It goes on. Ant and Dec will have blood on their hands if the GB News presenter wins. All right. So, are the left scared of Nigel winning I'm a Celeb? And if so, why? To debate this now, I am joined by former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy and former Labour aide Stella Chantakidou. Belinda, I'll start with you. Some of these comments there about Nigel being deplatformed, OK, Ant and Dec and ITV having blood on their hands. He said that The Apprentice gave America Trump. Have I got news for you? Gave Britain Boris Johnson. I mean, this is unhinged, isn't it?
I think there are many on the Lib left who have literally worked themselves up into an emotional lava for years over Nigel, falling victim to their own hysteria, first demonising him beyond all recognition and then being terrified of the monster they've created. It's hysterical, and they sound deranged, clearly, but what's really interesting is clearly they're worried. They're worried that someone like Nigel, who has very centrist, moderate point of views, like a country governing itself and making its own laws and having sustainable immigration and controlling borders. These are globally recognised centrist views, and a lot on the left hate them, so they need to call him their devil. And because he hasn't shown his horns on I'm a Celebrity, they're really angry that people are going to like him and find him the charming pussycat he is.
But look, Stella, you know, he says it's an uncritical view. I mean, the cameras are rolling 24/7, right? I mean, they could easily just stitch him up, and they clearly haven't found a way to do that at the moment, so they're editing him out. Is that really the nice face of the left deplatforming?
Patrick, yes, the ITV, that well-known home of the radical left, full of Marxists, that ITV, I'm sure. I'm sure the decision to show less or more of Nigel Farage has anything to do with that. Listen, if they were that left-wing, and if they agreed with the Guardian article, then they wouldn't have him in the first place. The reason why Nigel Farage is on there is because he's a very good broadcaster. He's good TV. They are a business. They are doing this because they want to get more views.
Well, they're trying to airbrush him out now, it appears. Our exclusive tonight was some great conversations.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
With Nigel about Donald Trump, and ITV are going, we can't have that.
No, they're not. It just makes him look nicer. If it makes him look more endearing to the public. If people are saying, oh, poor Nigel Farage, they don't want to show him enough. He's doing so well. They're afraid he's going to win, and they don't want to show him. Well, yes, you know what? I cannot speak for the entirety of the left, but for myself as a left-wing person, I am scared of Nigel Farage, not necessarily winning. I don't care whether he wins or loses. I am scared of the celebrification of politicians. I am afraid of having more Donald Trump figures in the UK.
But is this not the point, which is that, you know, what are people so afraid of if this guy goes on national television and it emerges that he's not a monster? Isn't that what they're afraid of?
They're terrified of it. I remember back in the Brexit days when I went into sort of BBC world to do interviews, people were shocked and horrified that I was a normal person. I genuinely think they believed I was going to come in with horns. And the same is with Nigel, and they've spent so long demonising Brexiteers and people who care about sustainable immigration that now they don't like that the real face of ordinary Brits is much like Nigel, much like myself. We love immigration, but as long as it's sustainable. And Nigel is not this far-right, crazy fascist person that lots of people on the left say he is. He really isn't.
He's far-right. He's not fascist. He is far-right. I mean, come on, guys.
He's not far-right.
Just own up to your politics. I mean, come on.
What's far-right about him? What's far-right about him?
Could I ask, if you genuinely, Stella, if you genuinely think that ITV thought, despite what people might say, that he was actually far-right, they wouldn't have put him in there?
Not a chance they'd have had him.
You don't think?
They already know his politics. His politics is not something that he created this year or last year. He's been a politician for decades. We already know what he's
about. I mean, no brand, actually, if they genuinely believed that someone was far right, you would not pay them £1.5 million.
Okay, we're getting into semantics now, right? We're getting into semantics. It depends on what you think far right or far left.
And the left have gutted the term far right. They called J.K. Rowling far right for thinking men. Don't talk over me. The left have been calling people like J.K. Rowling, me, David Lammy has been calling Brexiteers Nazis. They've been calling us far right for just saying the truth, common sense centrist positions. And it's a tool the left use because they have no argument that will win. Right. They know they won't win, so they demonise us.
Stella. I won't gaslight you, Belinda. There are some people who do what you're saying, but this is not the case for ITV. I do not think the ITV is the place where you have all of these left-wing extremists.
But do you think the left wing have gutted the term far right,
don't
made
think the
it
left
meaningless?
I do think there is a handful of people who are emotionally unstable, who do not know how to express themselves and do not know how to hold normal political views, and who, as you say, are out of touch. They live in a bubble.
Should he be deplatformed?
This is a tiny, tiny amount of people.
Should he be deplatformed?
Nobody should be deplatformed.
No?
Deplatformed, no.
And I already know what you think, Belinda, so I don't need to ask, but both of you, thank you very, very much. Short and sweet, but I think it was lively. So, that was former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy, former Labour aide Stella Chantakido as well. Now, coming up, Fleet Street legend Kelvin McKenzie joins me live in the studio to offer his unrivalled analysis of tomorrow's top stories. But next, tomorrow's newspaper front pages, they're just coming into me right now, hot off the press. And so is my panel as we bring you the most entertaining paper review that, frankly, you won't get anywhere else on the telly. Plus, the unlikely new Christmas advert that's taken John Lewis by storm. I will play you this heart-wrenching video. I'll be back in 3, don't move.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's bring you tomorrow's news tonight now in the most entertaining paper review anywhere on telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. I'm going in with the Metro. Trans teenager murder trial. Obsessed is the headline. Friends aged 15 preoccupied with torture, violence and death. A court is told a girl first tried to kill Brianna, 16, with an overdose of painkillers. This is, of course, the story of transgender teen Brianna Gay, who was stabbed 28 times with a hunting knife. The trial continues there. We move on now to the Eye. Interest rates will stay high into 2025, say economists. They've also got a story at the top there, which I will be zoning in on in a minute, which is the princes and the PR man. William and Harry's relationship damaged beyond repair after heir and spare rift unleashed by Cabinet Secretary Simon Case. Next, we've got the Sun. Gone too VAR. VAR, of course, there is the pun. Corners and free kicks next on list. VAR could be extended to checking corners, free kicks and yellow cards under balmy plans which will enrage fans. I mean, it will enrage fans, actually, to be honest with you, because how much slower can a game of football get? The best of Christmas TV revealed, and Kylie stars in a December the 10th cracker to get you in the mood, and a rather raunchy picture of Kylie there. We go to the Mirror. Britain's got to pay Walliams. Star axed after leaking of his X-rated show rant. He gets an apology in cash. David Walliams has cashed in £1 million, apparently, to end a legal battle. I move on to The Guardian now. Deal to extend truce raises hopes of dozens more hostages being released, and teenagers wanted to kill 5 children. Teenagers accused of murdering a 16-year-old girl in a park in Warrington had a list of 5 kids they wanted to kill. So those are the front pages for you there. There is a story that we're going to zone in on, though, that's on the front of the Eye, and it's inside the book as well, which is Omid Scobie, William and Harry rift was widened beyond repair by Cabinet Secretary Simon Case. Benjamin, what do you make of this?
Well, this is the suggestion that then basically Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, hired a PR man from William and Kate's office and then was doing the bidding from in government. So you might remember Harry and Meghan got criticised for taking Elton John's private jet, I think, to the south of France. And at the same time, a story appeared that William and Kate had got a 73 quid Flybe flight. Well, it turns out that flight had been sent 500 miles to get them, for 5,000 miles maybe, empty to go and pick them up, and there was some hypocrisy. That's what Omid Scobie, the author of this new book, is claiming. Wow. And I think, you know, the idea that the government is playing that role, that they're trying to twist things in that way, that it was intentional to harm Harry and Meghan, I think
so. That's the claim then, Carol, which is basically the government has gone into bat for William and Kate.
People must not forget, Scobie is Meghan and Harry's lackey. He's their mouthpiece and has been for a very long time. And he's saying that basically Simon Case promoted Prince William as a king in waiting. Well, he is the king in waiting. And You know, it's pretty obvious. And he's trying to blame the breakdown of the brothers' relationship on Simon Case. The breakdown of the brothers' relationship is entirely down to Meghan and Harry spilling the beans on very private details about the royal family. And the reason William will never speak to him again is because of the very private things he released about him. And this is again Meghan and Harry feeding him stuff, trying to play the victim, trying to say that, you know, this would never have happened. Now it's Simon Case who's the devil.
But Harry and Meghan have said that there are dark forces trying to manipulate them, to damage them in public life, that was happening when they were working royals. And I think what you're seeing here is examples of that.
This is so not examples of
the dark forces I saw were Harry and Meghan throwing Kate under the bus, disrespecting the monarch while her husband lay dying, accusing awful, horrible accusations of racism against the royal family. That was a dark force at work, far darker than someone got a helicopter and someone got a plane. That's sour grapes, as Carol said, victim mentality.
These two will never take responsibility for what they've done. And I have this feeling now that they're trying to get back into the good books of people in Britain, saying they want to come to Britain for Christmas and all the rest of it. I hope the royal family tell them to do one. I really do. Because we know they're just coming to get information for the next book. Maybe Scobie's next book. Maybe one of Meghan's next book.
I think to be on the receiving end of an institution like the royal family and the British state trying to undermine you like that.
He's one of the most privileged men in
Britain.
Britain.
I'll tell you what, let me quote something here from this article, right? William is firmly in the role of a decisive king in waiting, and Harry has been cast by the palace and the press as a perceived lost soul, Scobie writes. He goes on, you know, talking about how the government have basically gone into bat big time for
That's clearly not true. Harry had a fantastic position in this country. He was the darling of this country when he was working with the military veterans. People adored him. This is all just...
He had a wonderful life. This whinging from a prince, I think, is getting right on people's nerves.
He's on the back end of all this stuff. He's one of the most privileged men on the planet. He's had the most incredible life because he has no responsibility. And yes, it is true, William was once seen as a lazy good-for-nothing. But that was the point where he was kicking against the responsibilities of being king. He's now accepted those responsibilities.
I think to be on the sinister back channels of the British state, trying to undermine your marriage is going to have a pretty profound effect on you. And I think that probably explains how he feels. Well, this is what this story says.
When he married
the Cabinet
Meghan,
Secretary is attacking.
When he married Meghan, the country worshipped him. Yeah. When he was working with the vets, the minute we stopped worshipping him, was he started to accuse us all of being racist.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that Omid Scobie admitted in court to having spoken with Harry and Meghan for his previous book.
And Meghan denied it.
No. Quickly, we're going to have to put a cork in this, OK, because I've got some more front pages coming your way very, very soon. But after yet another John Lewis Christmas advert flop, an Irish pub has given the retailer a run for its money with their own Christmas ad. Charlie's Bar in Northern Ireland has gone viral for this tearjerker starring a lonely elderly gentleman. Apparently, it only cost them 700 quid. Take a look. I'm not crying, you're crying. Yeah, there you go. Much, much better than anything that some of the other lot have managed to come up with. Coming up, why is the BBC, easy for me to say, spending £600,000 of taxpayers' money on diversity and inclusion staff? We will debate that as we crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, Fleet Street icon Calvin Mackenzie joins me live for some more reaction to more of tomorrow's front pages. Don't miss them.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's get stuck into more of tomorrow's front pages. And Fleet Street legend, former editor of The Sun, Calvin Mackenzie, joins me now. Calvin, I am going to start with the Telegraph. There we go. Britain faces UN blacklist for blocking trans laws. Equalities watchdog may lose place at human rights meetings after Stonewall lobbying. I'll go into a little bit more detail on this quickly. The UK's Equalities...
Do you have to?
Human Rights Commission is facing a special review of its international accreditation after lobbying by trans rights groups, basically saying that we're not good enough. And there we go. At the Times, Hamas demands higher price to set soldiers free. Israel in talks to secure more hostages' liberty as truce in Gaza is extended for 2 more days. A few other bits and bobs there. At the bottom of the paper as well, VAR for free kicks, the fractured firm on the Royals. Legal advice warns PM of full-fat Rwanda plan. Basically, essentially, the Prime Minister has been legally warned that Rwanda essentially won't work. Calvin, which one do you want to tee off on there?
Well, one of the more interesting aspects will be actually down here, saying that William Hague is saying that the Daily Telegraph takeover plan is disturbing. So the government have a massive problem, don't they? Do they say yes to Abu Dhabi, who is the 6th largest producer of oil in the world and therefore important, right, and owns the Shard and various other things in this country? Or does it actually say, no, thank you very much to your money, and the rest of the Middle East say, really, so you like our energy, but you don't like our investment? Is that right?
So you think that the sale of the Telegraph might essentially reveal that the Arab world has got us by the...
I think so. I think so. And actually, at the end of the day, I don't care who owns the Telegraph. Media is owned by the consumer now, as actually GB News proves. It's the people at the bottom who decide what they're going to watch, what they're going to buy, and what they're going to listen to. So actually, whether the Telegraph is owned by some mad person or, by the way, some Muslim person or by some Christian person, I don't think it matters, because there's enough media out there to sink a battleship. So I don't think it matters all that much. But what it does do, it causes a massive problem for number 10. And it'd be fascinating to see which way they jump. My bet is that Rishi, I heard this way before this happened, doesn't want to know about this at any price and is prepared to nod this through. So just you wait. He's going to carry on saying, I'm in favour of a free press, right up to the minute he says, I'll tell you what, Abu Dhabi, welcome aboard.
So you think that that would possibly sum the man up, though, wouldn't it? I don't want to know.
Do you know, Rishi is going through an absolute shocker. So we have him saying we have the greatest visa system in the world. Come on down.
Explore.
Yeah, and the immigration guy saying that our country is being torn apart by having excess migration. I don't care which one they go for, but for God's sake, go for one of them. How can you be a Tory government and not have one view about immigration? Something is going seriously wrong at number 10, and I say to Rishi, don't spend your time worrying about this, that and the other. Sort out migration and you might only lose by 10%. The way you're going, you could lose by 30% and destroy the Conservatives, which is great if there's any socialists out there, by the way, right? But 30%, right, would likely to vote against you and destroy the Conservative Party for a generation and a half.
Right, talk about someone who does want to control migration and I think actually genuinely means it and could be bothered to deal with it. This man's in the jungle, Nigel Farage. I want to talk to you a bit about this, but we're going to play a little clip first of him arguing with French Fred.
What's the 3 benefits of Brexit?
Self-government.
Which we already had.
We did not have.
Okay.
Fred, there's no point. If you believe that, you don't understand what the European Union is.
So what's the second benefit?
Well, hopefully take back our territorial waters.
But when I'm talking about benefits, I'm talking about something tangible.
All right, the nuclear submarine deal with Australia could not have been done as an European Union member because France already had a contract. Simple as.
But we could have done it with France.
Don't make me laugh.
In fact, the French were really pissed off about that.
Of course they were. Good.
Do you think Fred's a bit thick?
No, but Fred has had a great career. Who gave him that career? Ladies and gentlemen, UK television gave him that career. When he came over here, he was washed up, and eventually got himself a job working in a restaurant, and from then came First Dates, and then came this. We are a great embracing country, and for him to be worried about anybody else is totally beyond me.
I think it's actually interesting for Nigel, who, let's be honest, it speaks with MPs, other journalists, etc. most days, and that's kind of, although he gets out and about, there is a bit of a bubble there naturally, given his political life. To actually hear, a maitre d' from bang average Channel 4 TV show sticking it
actually,
to him.
It's
over
quite
Brexit.
an enjoyable show, actually, isn't it? Compared to most of what Channel 4 put out, which is basically left-wing tosh, to be honest. But look,
it's better than the ball with a
for Nigel has done himself no harm at all. He looks in pretty good nick, right? His rear end would be attractive to members of...
OK, all right,
thanks very much. I was going to say members of staff, but I won't
say it anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, and would genuinely has been very helpful to his political ambitions. It's the clever... And not only that, your trouser £1.5 million, right?
But apparently they're airbrushing him out. Right, Kelvin, we're going to have to draw a line under it now. Thank you very, very much. That's Kelvin Mackenzie there, Fleet Street legend, a man who cannot and will not be shackled by conventional broadcasting rules. Now, it's time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. OK, so I will start with you, Carol, who's your Greatest Britain.
OK, I've got a little Greatest Brits. It's 100,000 people in the weekend who were at the anti-Semitism march. Unlike the pro-Palestinian marches, no aggression, no war cries, no threats, no calls for the deaths of anyone. Just a group of people, lots of them celebrities, chanting for the Hamas hostages to be brought home. That's how to do a peace protest.
Lovely start. OK, Ben.
Well, I never thought I'd say this, but my Greatest Britain is Boris Johnson.
Hey.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and maybe I'm trying to curry favour with new colleagues. But he gave an interview to GB News on Saturday or Sunday, on Sunday, about the anti-Semitism march and about the return of anti-Semitism and why we should have no truck with it, why it must be explicitly confronted. And I thought it was extremely well put. And I just wish that the current Prime Minister would have been able to articulate that.
Yeah, quite.
Agree.
Linda.
Wow. My greatest Brit is Nigel Farage this week. Yes, he has stood up for 17.4 million people on I'm a Celebrity by defending Brexit and putting up with a relentless, highly emotional French Fred who seems determined to try and create conflict. And he seems pretty ignorant, poor Fred. So thank you, Nigel, for giving him a little lesson on Brexit.
This week's winner is because I think that if he was Prime Minister right now, we would have had a barnstorming speech. He would have put all this nonsense and the anti-Semitism to bed. We haven't had that. I think that's a disgrace. Boris Johnson, come back anytime you like. Greatest Britain. Right, Union Jack.
Don't quite endorse that, but thank you.
Mine is I'm a Celeb's hideous Nella Rose. This is the so-called influencer who currently is influencing everyone in the country that she's a thick, nasty, spiteful piece of work. She's a perfect example of how some of the younger generation have no resilience, no guts, just an attitude. She's been horrible to Nigel, she's been horrible to Fred. I hope they make her do every single trial until the very last one.
I think, you know, some people do say that Nella is the voice of a generation.
She's not.
Actually, you know, she's doing very well in there.
No,
right,
she's not.
Benjamin, your views on who is your Union Jackass?
My Union Jackass is all British pigs because they are spreading swine flu to humans, and I don't want another COVID, so I think the pigs should stop it.
This is not their fault.
I blame the pigs.
Belinda,
Mine is the BBC. It has been reported they're spending over £600,000 on diversity and inclusion officers, woke nonsense at the expense of the taxpayer. And we all know what it means. It means anti-women's spaces and anti-white people. So, no, not down with the BBC.
Right, a BBC spokesperson has told us that the BBC, just like most organisations, has staff working to ensure we reflect the diverse communities of the UK, both on and off the screen. Diversity and inclusion is part of the BBC's public purposes, as set out in our charter. We will continue to deliver our plans, balancing the need to attract and retain highly skilled staff while offering value for licence fee payers. And the winner is the BBC. The BBC is this week's Union Jackass of that. Now, thank you very much to my wonderful panel. You've been an absolutely amazing firecracker of a panel from start to finish tonight. Thank you to all of my wonderful guests. Also, can I just implore you, if you've missed out on that exclusive that we brought to you about Nigel Down Under, or you want to hear an eviscerating take on how we're being let down on mass migration, go to YouTube, watch it back. I'll be back from 9 p.m. tomorrow, and up next, it's Headliners. See you tomorrow at 9. Mwah, good night.
Evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Staying cold throughout this week. Really frosty mornings will become pretty frequent, and so will quite a bit of sunshine by day. It wasn't a lot of sunshine around today, quite a lot of cloud and still some outbreaks of rain coming into northern England and eastern England. And the showers in northern Scotland will turn to snow, but only really over the tops of the hills. Might turn a bit icy, could turn a bit foggy in places, and temperatures dropping below freezing across northern Britain, certainly in the countryside. Further south, just about holding up a few degrees above zero. On to Tuesday, we'll start with quite a lot of cloud over the Midlands, the odd shower here and there, but that should clear away. The showers in northeast Scotland will turn increasingly wintry, so some sleet and snow coming in here, certainly by the end of the day, even to low levels. For many, though, it's a dry and a bright day tomorrow. It's going to be cold, 4 or 5 degrees across the north, 7 or 8 further south, but feeling chilly with the winds, which will continue to bring wintry showers in across northeast Scotland, but also maybe southeast Scotland, northeast England. We could see some sleet and snow showers on Tuesday night and into Wednesday, so it could be a little icy here. Again, for many, Wednesday's dry and fine, chilly, yes, but with quite a bit of sunshine. Temperatures, though, well below average for the time of year. With the cold air in place, eyes down to the southwest, because these low pressure systems could introduce some wet weather, and that means the potential, just the risk of some snow in the south later this week.